Hello everyone, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4. Today's going to be a bit of a different video where I'm actually reviewing one of the features that came with the La Resistance DLC, that being the collaboration government, which you probably knew because you read the title of the video. So why am I talking about it? Well, with La Resistance we basically came with 3 big focus trees. That was kind of the key point. But one of the minor points that came off of the spy mechanic was the collaboration government. And after looking into it further, I think this is a heavily underrated feature that, if expanded upon in future, could be so much better. It's so close to greatness. We were this close. So in this video we're going to go through what they do, why they're cool, and at the end we're going to show you a little mod I made which hopefully illustrates just how cool they could be. But that comes in the end. So to show it off, let's get started with Portugal. So you join me on the 7th of October 1936, which is, generally speaking, pretty early into High 4, but the reason is because this is a pre-created save that I've worked through to show off all the things I need to for collaboration governments. So let's get started. What is a collaboration government? Well, seen here, we can see that a collaboration government, which I formed in China, is actually very similar to an integrated puppet. For the most part, if we hover over here, we can see that, generally speaking, they share the same stats. They both give manpower requirements, they both give extra trade, and they both give extra civs and military factories to their overlord. The key difference is that collaboration governments can send 75% civilian industry, while integrated puppets only send 25%. Which means that your collaboration governments are basically giving you 50% more of their overall civ factories. That's quite a lot of industry you can get from a collaboration government. But that's not the coolest feature about them. You see, unlike here in Guinea-Bissau, where it retains its original colour and name, if you go to China, Macau isn't just Macau, it's Portuguese China. And it also has the same green colour as Portugal. This is essentially a map painting tool, so that you can create lots of puppets without having the map look a disgusting array of different colours. It's art in map form. So who, might you be asking, is most capable of creating these collaboration governments? Well, unsurprisingly, it would appear that the 2 nations that got focus trees, specifically with colonies, are the best to do it, that being Portugal and France. In order to create a collaboration government, your country must not be democratic and have over 80% compliance in the given states where the government exists. So in the case of Angola, you can see that over time compliance will grow slowly but surely, 0.026. This modifier is interchangeable, but the key point is being at peace and making sure the compliance laws are favourable towards the country. If you do this just passively over time, the country will get to 80% and you'll get a little pop-up event. Namely, this one. So, now that Angola is over 80%, we get this event. After a long and concerted effort to improve cooperation and compliance between our occupational forces and local civilian authorities, we are now ready to put control of Angola back into the hands of the local government. They have our blessing and it creates a collaboration government. If you weren't quick, you missed it. But Angola is now called Portuguese Angola instead of just Portugal, and it is instead a puppet. But it looks the same, and that's why it's beautiful. It's even better than a puppet, and it looks good, and you get your title at the front. See, this is perfect. This is exactly what you need. Equally, if you're playing as France, if you go into your focus tree, you can see that you have 2 focuses that give you compliance in all your colonies. One of them is Develop the Colonies, which gives you plus 10% compliance, and the other one is France Indivisible, which also gives them all 10% compliance. You only need to get to 80, but the key issue with France is they're democratic, and you cannot create a collaboration government as democratic France. So you might want to consider going monarchist or something different if you want to get lots of blue African colonies, but maintain the entire blue Africa shape as you know it. It's powerful and it's pretty good. Okay, but let's say you're not playing as Portugal, and you want to get some collaboration governments. How would you do this? Well, Hoi4 is a war game, so it's going to involve you going to war with somebody. But the key point is that now you have to use the intelligence agency mechanics with spies. So, in typical Blue Pleater fashion again, I've also got this ready from earlier. So with 3 spies, building an intel network in Ireland, we've managed to have enough intel to do some operations. The key one being prepare collaboration government for 90 days. We can stick 2 lads on, this person and this person. Commence when ready, and this will give us 30% collaboration inside their country. Now if you remember, we needed 80 to form a government. So if we repeat this 3 times, prepare, that means that after we've done it for the 3rd time, this country is ready to make a collaboration government once we invade them. Of course, it will still require you to do the whole, invading them thing. But apart from that, this is how you can do it, which could be especially powerful for some of the massive majors, not naming anyone, who have, a focus tree that has been reworked so that they have an operative slot in Smersh and an operative slot in NKVD primacy, and can, make cool collaboration governments in certain countries. And for those of you who would be interested, this is what a Portuguese Ireland would look like. You can consider this cursed if you want, but it's still pretty cool to me. So what potential do these collaboration governments have? How could I use them for greater effect? Well, one of them comes in the form of the achievement, Go Ahead, Macau My Day, in which the very small collaboration government of Portuguese China needs to annex China. What you don't realise at the time is that once you create the collaboration government, it gains all the same cores as the existing governments do. So now, Portuguese China has a core on Sichuan with 53 million, which means the more you push in, the more manpower Portugal gains. Now, annexing China is pretty difficult, which is why it's going to be achievement. But maybe there's a country with lots of manpower, with less soldiers, which in a certain circumstance you could probably get all their stuff from. Anyway, here's India. Now, lucky for us, it just so happens that our Portuguese friends also have a colony in India. And that means Portuguese India is now a thing as well. And, oh look, Portuguese India has a core on Mysore. And so on the madness goes. So, hypothetically, if Britain was to go, say, fascist, or communist, or monarchist, at some point India will become independent and free. They also won't have that many units. Now, if you've been preparing for that, and you are, for example, fascist Portugal, if you've set up your compliant Goa, you can immediately justify on the Raj and begin creating the Portuguese India. Not the Portuguese Raj, but Portuguese India, which means, assuming all goes perfectly well, the recruitable population factor idea won't be on your side. Now, there is some complication regarding tags, which means that Portuguese India might gain the tag of the Raj. If that does happen, you could always just annex most of it for Portuguese India, and then leave a single state to the British Raj that's left over. So, you could just stick them in Assam or, the Pradesh region. I'm sure that won't cause any issues with China down the road. But you get all of the manpower, and that is, well, it's just ridiculously overpowered. There's no way to sugarcoat it. Just in case anybody wasn't sure how willing I was to show Portuguese India, this is it in all its beauty, assuming you get Pakistan, Bangladesh and Burma as well. With 300,000 manpower available, and that's only on volunteer only. If you can get them higher, this is a power state just waiting to happen. The manpower is off the charts. It's ridiculous, but it's beautiful. And so that's the core of what a collaboration government is in its current form. But now we can move on to the mod part, where I show what I think could be the potential of this feature in future updates. It's at this point I'd like to chime in and say, if you're enjoying Hoi4 content and want to see more stuff like this, you could subscribe. It really gives me such enthusiasm when I see so many people interested in what I do and really encourages me to keep making more content, so if you haven't done already, maybe you could. Okay, selling out is over, let's see the mod I made. And it does involve Papa Stalin. So here we see the Soviet Union not at its greatest, even though it's pretty big in its current form. It did expand, and it began by sort of going after the East and, well, the West from their perspective, I suppose, until eventually it decided that under the United Nations it would be easier to create smaller, you could say, collaboration governments inside their pre-existing territories, which is exactly what I built a focus tree around. It's called the Soviet Bloc, and all it basically does is take advantage of the collaboration government system to show you what you could do. Let's get into it. For this playthrough of the mod, I'm going to annex Poland in the very early game, do the Great Purge, and then just rush down the tree as best I can. Justifying on Poland. Trial of the anti-Soviet Trotskyists. I don't need the political power because I'm going to need Nikita Khrushchev later on. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a fan of all this purging business. I'm not a fan of it at all. The Great Purge has been completed, which means we can now begin where my mod begins, the State of the Union, which gives us that 75 political power we spent to get Nikita Khrushchev to not die. State of the Union is done, and we're going to save our political power to raise our stability. Because the path we want to go down is decentralisation. There's a path for centralisation, but essentially we're deciding what to do with the Soviet Union. The world is changing and Russia knows change all too well. To survive the coming century, a radical shift in policy and constitution could ensure our grandeur through decentralisation of the Russian Empire into a new collective of nations commanded from Moscow. And I don't think people are going to be very happy with us unless we have 60% stability. Luckily, Mikhail Kalinin will help us by giving us plus 15% stability. Let's just wait a bit. Okay, we waited just a little bit just to get to 151. Now we can get him. There we go, 73 stability. And now we can go down decentralisation, which loses us the stability. It's a complicated business here in the state of the Soviet Union. In the meantime, in Poland, I'm going to do the prepare collaboration government. I don't think this is going to do anything, but just to keep on trend with what you can do, this is how you do it. You need to give some support equipment, some infantry equipment, and use up some civilian factories. But other than that, it's not too difficult. We finished decentralisation, but we can't begin doing our decentralised program until we've gotten rid of our constitutional revision program. This will be done in about 70 days, which gives you a chance to do another focus. Let's do Stalin Constitution. Stalin Constitution is finished, and now we've got rid of the idea, so we can begin freeing some puppets. So let's start off small and create a collaboration government in Azerbaijan. So the key point of this is that typically the Soviet Union didn't want to decentralise. This entire path is ridiculously ahistorical. However, hypothetically, if they were to, and Stalin had somehow lost his mind and decided to do this, I'm pretty sure everybody would not be very happy with him. So each time you grant sovereignty to one of the nations, you lose a bit of stability. Let's start by losing all of our oil. Good stuff. A small problem has occurred, and Romania and Poland are now guaranteeing each other in a blood pact. This might take longer than I thought. I hope it doesn't spiral into a war with France. Uh-oh. Justification is ready. Let's see how problematic this war is. We might win. As long as we hold down here. Okay, I'm going to admit, the officers purged wasn't really an issue. We appear to be pushing fine, with some help with some tanks. Sovereignty to Azerbaijan is finished, and there it is, Soviet Azerbaijan. At face value, you wouldn't even notice anything has changed, but little down there, it is done. And if you want to get your oil back, you can. You just need to trade with your puppet. Oh, they've made it so that the puppets don't appear here yet. That's fine. Soviet Azerbaijan, 98 oil. I'll take 80 of it for 1 civ. Stonks are up. Let's do Kazakhstan next. Let's do a big one. Poland is collapsing before my very eyes. Oh no, this is sad. Why is it always Poland? Poland has been capitulated, which means I'm going to just take all states. With a breakthrough in Romania, I think we'll get the other side. This is a very good 2-for-1 offer because it's perfectly going to show off what Ukraine could look like. Looks like they're getting encircled. Things are not looking good now. Just warring away. It keeps making these little pockets and just working with them. I'd like to point out this is with the Great Purge. I don't consider the Officers' Purge to be a major debuff, to be quite honest. Maybe if you were against a player and that player was Germany, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward. Sovereignty to Kazakhstan. And there it is. Also red, also beautiful. Basically just an integrated puppet, except I still keep 75% of the civs. And it also has created a baby Soviet Union. Oh, look at that. Let's get rid of it. Oh no, they're dying over here too. Oof. There's something so good about when it just says overrun and it just flies into the air. That's how you know you're winning. Overrun again? Now it's just the siege of Bucharest. Finished. And let's take all states. Done. So as the Soviet Union has sort of tightened its grip over Western Europe, we can now begin in Asia. Sovereignty to Central Asia means more little puppets. Let's get the big one, Ukraine. So because we've annexed also the parts of Ukraine that belonged to Poland and Romania, we should have a very interesting looking Ukraine. So let's go see what that should look like. I can now use my spies to root out all the resistance. Ugh. I think they should make it so diplomatic pressure also is allowed to be used on your sort of own states, so you can raise the compliance in them. But that's just one of my ideas. Sovereignty to Ukraine is finished. And look at her. Look at how big she is. And she still retains the beautiful colour of red, and it all just works perfectly. There's Nikita Khrushchev, the man we definitely shouldn't have executed. He doesn't look very accurate, but that aside, Soviet Ukraine. And then I'm going to wrap up the video by just quickly talking about, you can do it to all of them, all of the territories that the Soviet Union own. There's some focuses down here so that once you have them, you can build them up, get some civs in them. This also works for the sort of Central Asian and other parts. And there's also this one at the side. But do remember, if you release all of the Soviets' own territories as puppets or free states, they won't be called the Soviet Union anymore. They'll be the Russian Federation. So I stuck this one at the side as just like a be careful, if you release Georgia, that's it. There's also all of this section if you wanted to go down the other side. But I'll let you play that for yourself. So hopefully there'll be a link in the description. If not, this was just a sort of insight into what you could do with the Soviet Union if the collaboration government is taken into a Soviet Union DLC, for example. And that's it. So I hope you liked this little sort of insight into exploits tutorials and my thoughts on the collaboration government feature. And all in all, I think it's pretty good. And you're pretty good for watching this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you could subscribe, you could like the video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.